Hello, we are back. Yeah, catching up on what all we're doing in this series. If you haven't watched before, um, we are programming with robots. We are trying to use a system called Gas City, which is an agent orchestrator. And the idea of Gas City is that I'm going to define the agents that I want in my little company. I'm going to set up business processes for them, hopefully letting them do what they do best, right? Like use their cognition in the domain that I specify on the types of work that I specify and refusing work that doesn't fit with that specification. And so far, the work that we've been working on is creating puzzle games, like novel puzzle games that anybody in the community could enjoy and we could turn into a product potentially. In previous sessions, we've gone over different sites that already do this really well. There's a site called Janko that's an immense catalog of puzzles. And then there's a site called Conceptus Puzzles that is an extremely well designed, user friendly commercial project with like you could say a microtransaction system for buying puzzles of types that you enjoy and with a high quality, sort of smooth user experience. And so those are sort of the things that we're aiming at, the bleeding edge of puzzle design and the user friendliness and commercial viability. Um, some of this we've been doing as kind of just an experiment, like can we extend Gas City, this agent orchestrator, to map to our own ideas about software engineering organizations, about assigning work, about scoping appropriately, about rejecting things outside of your scope. And the idea is that over time, and this happens in a regular company as well, right? You establish a scope, you start to do work in that scope, and you learn. You create institutional memory. You create bespoke processes for things that you had to sort of do ad hoc at first. As you study yourself and what you're trying to do inside of your area, you acquire skills and specialized knowledge, and you put those together in patterns that people in other parts of the company just aren't paying attention to. And we derive a lot of advantages from that, right? Because the scope allows us to use most of our brain power inside of our scope, not thinking about unrelated topics. We don't have to boil the ocean to sort of cast our fishing line and get a fish, right? Instead, we just work inside of our own sphere and everything's kind of contained. And especially while we're continuing to work inside of agent sessions that have limited scope and lifetime, um, we're trying to make it possible to spin up an agent that not only has the sort of right persona and focus, and perhaps, has the right documents hot in its cache, but is also following the advice of its predecessor selves or the hard won knowledge of doing this kind of work. And the more we do novel work, the less possible it is that it's in the training data. Right? Like, I think a big complaint people have about AI is that they're just regurgitating everything that humans have already done. Uh, in my experience in 20 years in the software industry, give or take, uh, rarely is that true with like proprietary data. There's no one who can advise you about it. There are no tutorials out on the internet. It's just whatever we have left behind for each other as we documented our work and went through. And that's a sort of funny idea, right? That in fact, there are all kinds of domains that lie outside of the training data, where if we want to do anything interesting at all, we're going to have to build our own muscles and train ourselves how to do this work. And that's, I think, to me, that puts the lie to the idea that if we continue to use these agents, we're just going to steal jobs from people. Um, it's true. We could perhaps set humans to these jobs, and there's maybe an opportunity cost there. But if they're doing something that's new, I don't have any reason to believe that, um, that's just sort of we're not like colonializing the past to do that, right? Um, to me, there's so much frontier in computer science, and there's so much frontier in software. There's so many products that could exist but don't. There's so many that had a certain activation energy that wouldn't have paid off in the previous world that now may become a possibility. And so, certainly we love puzzle games, and we're doing a lot of stuff with puzzle games right now. But we're also trying to lay the pattern that, if we could, if we decided to start on a new, more socially conscious domain, puzzle games are great. Please play puzzle games. But say that we wanted to really change the world for the better. We want to be able to create the kind of meta system that we can aim at that problem area and say, let's figure out who we need in our small little company here. Let's attack this in a way nobody's done it before. And my hope is that this series of videos and all the stuff that we're doing is just an example of how you can go about doing this for the domain of your choice. So with that, let's get back into our mirror session. Last night we sort of left off. We were looking at the day's gains. Essentially, we've set up a pipeline of agents that will take a gaming prototype and kind of put it through its paces, if you want. And that's been a combination of prompting the agents in a certain way, but also giving them the workflows and formulas that they need. All right, and the latest thing that we were doing, we were starting to fix some problems with the workflow and dispatching that we've created in past sessions. And I think once it got that fixed, then it's starting to migrate. Okay, so it did in fact hand off to the new mayor. I think this means around midnight. So shortly after, I told it to sort of. The session seemed like it was getting kind of long, so this was sort of like hey, wrap up what you're doing, and then prep for a fresh mayor session. So I think the context has been reset here, and the mayor is catching up on where we're at. Refused beads. So in the system that we created, we ask an agent to consider: is this my job, or does this fit with the charter? Is this aligned with what I'm supposed to be working on? And if it's not aligned with what I'm supposed to be working on, then I refuse it and I ask it to be rerouted. And with the idea that perhaps the rerouting will go to a better agent inside of the company, or we've discovered a vein of work that doesn't have a clear owner, that needs to perhaps spawn a new department, a new charter, a new routing table if you want, and a new entry in our yellow pages, you could say. All right, let's check out what was happening last night. Okay, they were onboarding smoke tests, so the refusal was appropriate. Um, so as we're trying to pass through work, perhaps work that wasn't ready yet, or well defined, or that kind of thing. Sometimes we were sending work down the pipeline to see sort of this unhappy path where the work isn't ready or something, and the agent should rightly refuse it. And so it looks like it did. We have some informational data growth notices. I guess I actually don't know. Yeah, we are starting to lock up on disk a little bit. And I'm starting to think that this VM might be a little bit too small for what all we're trying to achieve. Um, but yeah, maybe we could mount another volume and add some more disk. All right. The reason that we added this thing to dispatch is that we noticed a flaw in the dispatching formula. After we accept work, we should assign that work to the appropriate agent. And that should be a deterministic thing. We shouldn't make the agent remember, oh, yeah, this is a thing that I have to do at the end of that step. And so by adding this flag and then having the agents call a command line tool that is deterministic in nature, we're hoping that we'll get rid of some of that stuff where tickets get created, they're clearly for a certain agent, but because they're unassigned, they don't show up in the work query and they don't get worked on. That was this bug right here. So now it's looking at playtester and it's using that as an example to redo the inventor and the other ones and testing all that stuff. So all this was happening while I was asleep. And then we have these other agents inside of our system. They have some funny names. I have speculated about whether the name I chose for the city, Tudor, is influencing the mayor's choices for some of these labels. And, if I think that the thing that we're trying to do as well is like naming is hard, but it's harder if you use a generic name and it at any point becomes ambiguous who you're talking about or what the concept is. And by creating a sort of unique like label or unusual engram or whatever, you're going to be able to talk in a sort of jargon inside of this project or about things that are in this rig. And you move to another project, another rig, or you move to another city, and you use a sort of different dialect, and you're going to be less confused, right? Certainly, I'm a little less confused when I think about my previous jobs and the ways that we talked about our work were just subtly different, and they all sort of stick out in your mind. You don't have trouble code switching, I guess, what I'm saying. Okay, we're changing some of these. Um, So pouring formulas, that refers to taking a workflow template and instantiating an instance of it for execution. And it's trying to, again, this is sort of like I've talked about this pattern before, right? Where it says the way that things used to be, you do this thing. And now the code says, don't do that thing that used to be true. And obviously, I think the agents do it for a reason, right? Which is that, like, perhaps they're anchored to a certain way of doing things, or they see that the path of least resistance is causing this error. And so they try to add some resistance in there so that there's a different path of least resistance. Uh, so I sympathize with this a lot. I just don't know how effective it's going to be in the long run. Like from my point of view, this is sort of craft. Like in the present state of my branches historically, I haven't had a bunch of stuff that says this is how this used to work. Instead, that all gets wiped out when we, move, make a code change. We forget about the way that it used to work, and it lives inside of the history of the repository. And if we ever are curious about how it used to work, we can go back in time. We can go back to that commit or whatever, search around and see uh, a snapshot of all of the code as it was, and then we can see the old comments, and they'd say something different or they'd do something different. And so, yeah, we have a lot of this stuff that's like, don't do it the old way when there's no longer any reference to the old way. I would sort of prefer that after it did its code changes that it would vet it before it closed it, but I guess we'll see. Let's take a look at So we're hoping that we got some new puzzles in our catalog. And it really doesn't look like it. Hmm. I think we were going to have an antiquarian investing games from puzzles, I should say, from the Janko catalog. But when I looked for a fresh example, oh yeah, there is one other place I should look. The way that they had this go is that entries have been promoted, but staging might have different stuff. Yeah, see they're also, it is not showing a run. I didn't find any, nor do we have an entry in staging or a new Janko or a new run. Um, we can check this out. So this is a bead in 3TK. So we could do like in 3TK. Yeah. Let's start by figuring out what needs to be done there. So what I think it's going to do is peek in at the session associated with this. It's got an antiquarian mid-flight, it says. But yeah, this is what we'd expect. Okay. So while we're doing this, um, lots of possibilities for what we do next. I'm sort of tempted to go through all of the Janko puzzles. This could take a long time. um, I mean, I think especially the ones that are here. Let's return back here. We've got a bunch of Nikori puzzles here. We've done all of the ones that were on the English site, but then we can start looking through here, and we've got a lot more puzzles that we haven't seen yet. So King Kong Khan is new, and we can just start from right here. And just kind of do what we were doing before, I think. Read the rules and a sample puzzle, and see if we can solve that puzzle. That's an interesting name for this GIF. And I'm okay with, let's do this before we, so my downloads has definitely gotten like out of control. Uh, let's do some quick rearrangement here. Now we're going to see how bad I am at manipulating the file finder in Ubuntu. Nikodi English. Everything that we've got here so far this is all from Nikodi in English. And I don't think I'm really Okay, everything down to here, I think. We've got these 50 items. In you go. These puzzle rounds, these are from World Puzzle Federation, and they are intended, I think, just to be used as instructions as well. So um, they have the puzzle types that were used in. I think the first puzzle round was this is from some old year, 2014, right? The instruction booklet, and so we've got these puzzle authors, and thanks for their work, and then we've got examples and instructions for this. Um, I think we'll be able to. We did do an LITS puzzle um, as we were going through the Nikori puzzles. It was on the site, and so we did this Norikabe. Obviously, um, I was using some pretty crappy tools at that time, but if we go through these, then we'll definitely be able to use Krita for that. But yeah, they've been doing this for years. Pretty cool. This is sort of a total sidebar, but I've got to put in a reminder to myself to look at the next round. This is coming up, I think, and we might be able to participate. Let's see. The fifth round of the WPF Puzzle GP 2026 is coming soon. It's in like just over a week from now, starting on May 29th. So yeah, I think totally tempting. If I'd known this existed 10 years ago, maybe I'd have been doing it for all 10 years. Although I'm a sort of Johnny come lately to this whole thing. Like I've always loved this kind of puzzle. In particular, like my grandmother was really big into the Dell crossword puzzles, and those she'd always have one of them around, and they have mostly crosswords, of course, but then they have all kinds of other word puzzles and logic puzzles, and some of these like logic grid type puzzles. So my first Kakuros I did in there, and my first Sudoku, I'm pretty sure. All right. This is sort of our little puzzle. We were trying to see if we could figure out what the puzzle solver was trying to create for our prototype. All right. Equal to English. Oh, yeah, yeah. We need a new folder. New folder. Nikori. I'm going to call this Jenko. For all of the ones that we're getting off of this site that we just haven't seen yet. There we go. My downloads are going to look a lot less cluttered now. Who knows? Lots of stuff in here. It would be nice if I had isolated this VM from all of my personal interests and stuff like that, but I didn't really do that. All right. Draw a single path from the entry to the exit. So we've got an entry and an exit here. The sections of the path run horizontally and vertically between the center points of orthogonally adjacent cells, meaning the ones to the north, east, west, and south. In white cells, the path may turn by 90, but it must not cross itself. Gray is ice. Severally orthogonally adjacent ice cells form an ice area. In an ice area, the path may cross itself, but must not turn. That's cool. The path must pass through all arrows in all ice areas, but not necessarily through all cells. All right, Iceban or Ice Barn. All right, let's give it a try. Never seen it before. Very cool. All right, and of course our pen is super huge. If we're skating around on ice, we need some ice skates. A nice gray color here. Okay. We have to go through all of the arrows. Maybe I missed the arrow part. Must pass through all arrows. Okay. Let's do that. Oh, well, before we get to that, let's see about what's going on. Okay. All right. There is the ready query that says it's routed to our antiquarian shows that this task is ready. But there's a guard where if the session origin is ephemeral, then it will just exit. Oh, no, it's if it's not ephemeral. This is a systemic gap. GC molecule poor. Don't set assignee. So there might be a mismatch between the way we were dispatching work before and the way that we are now. Yeah, let's do, I definitely like number 3 first. File a bug, then assign. There we go. Yeah. Always file. Always be filing. Absolutely. All right. Okay, we'll just let that run. Okay, gotta go through the arrows from center to center. And we're also keeping track a little bit of the direction, right? Because, and we had a direction this way and this way, but it doesn't make sense that we can make a 90-degree turn on the ice if we want to, but it wouldn't make sense to have the path go from right to left on this side and left to right on this side. So this, I think, is like, we're not going to go there. Here we go. We run into this same thing again, right? Where if we went straight from here, we're on ice, we have to keep sliding and sliding, and we'd be here. And the path won't allow this, right? Like we'd be coming, top to bottom here and bottom to top here. So I think this would also be out. Maybe that it's good to put little. Yeah, don't go that way. That also implies, incidentally, that we're not going to visit this ice this way, right? Because if we come in from the top, we'll slide and we'll hit this red mark, and if we come in from the bottom, we'll slide and hit this red mark. So that leaves only one possibility for the start of our path to go here. It also cuts off this, and we have to slide across here. Let's read the thing again. We have to visit all the ice areas at least once, but we don't have to visit all the cells, right? Cross itself may cross itself, but must not turn. Okay, so I think that's helpful information too, just because. Okay. All right, filing the systemic bug, it did that. We're assigning them to the antiquarian. the workaround is applied. Okay. All right. Do you want to work the bug or something more pressing? I don't really feel like I should have to ask this question, but you know. So just because we drew this line across here doesn't mean that we're precluded from crossing the ice again this way. So that's sort of an important distinction. Okay. It's sort of a pity that we don't have a nomenclature that has to do with angles of routing, if you want, right? Like we should have a little arrow down here that says, you know, we're going west, right, at the moment. Let's keep working on the stuff that we know we'll have to do. Here's a block where we have this one coming from the top and we have this one coming from the bottom. And they can't run into each other. And there's like a physical metaphor for this, right? That the skater is not going to revisit their existing path. Now it is possible that the skater could turn here and come down here and loop around. That's totally fair game. We have got a line here that says we're getting onto the ice, and then we'll continue to here. So we don't have a branching in our path on white, so we can't come through here or through here. We know that gray is going to take a turn in the corner. And then this is going to be in the way right here. And it's going to slide across this ice. Oops. Let's try it again. Slide across. Man, this is me and my mouse struggling. And here we've got the path going, this one's going north, this one's coming south. Can't run into each other. This one wouldn't work because we would have coming from west to east, and we have coming from south to north, the same one. That doesn't work. We can't enter a point from two directions, I guess, is the generalization of that. That means we've got to slide across this ice. All right. I guess we had to enter this from here. No other way to get there. You know, the entry exit thing kind of reminds me of a different puzzle, which is called Trains in Simon Tatham. It has the same entry exit thing, only one entry and one exit. And so you can eliminate paths that would force you to come from two directions at once or have a meeting of three. It's not exactly the same, but there's something there. Okay. I guess to get to here, we had a choice of coming in from west or north. Although it can't be too far to the north. Like, there's no way to get from here to here directly because these are both froms, exits. So there's an entrance into this cell right here, but there's not another exit, right? The arrow thing is interesting. I don't think I've seen the arrow thing before in a puzzle. Okay. It looks like the workaround worked. Great. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Sort of looking now for more inferences to make. I mean, we can tell that we're not going to turn left here and then go up here because we'd create a little loop. And we don't have that. We have an entrance and an exit. Like in this whole route. Right? And we're sort of looking for ends that don't meet. We also have a sort of principle that we can't take this one over to the east and just leave because we have all of this, skating to do still. We have not crossing the path. See, ordinarily in trains you'd go, oh, well, I clearly have to come in from the west, and so on. But in this puzzle, you're allowed to skate across the gray and cross the path when you're doing that. Yeah, I guess when there's a bend on especially the white, yeah, we're not able to come in this way. That would cause like a branching. Oh, I see another one we can do. I might have neglected it. And here, we can't go to the west, so we got to go. It only works if you make the noises, as Bob Ross used to say. All right. Interesting. So we know that we can't go down this way. And that means that the only entry, and we're not going to go up this way. So the only possible entry point to this is from this side. Now it's not necessarily true that we've got to get to this square. We can skate across this way as well. But it is interesting that there's only sort of those two options. Either skip it altogether or accept the entry from this. Oh, okay. Maybe that's a way to think about this move here. So if we move from west to east here, we only have two more options. A forced entry to a square that already has an entry, or an entry to the exit. So we actually can't move this way. Instead, we've got to take our turn. And very similar again for the next square. If we moved up, then we would just head out and we'd be gone. So we can't move this way either. In fact, can't move this way. So our next move, we're going to be skating across some ice. We don't know if we're going south or to the right. Yeah, I'm finding this puzzle very engaging. Lots of fun. Yeah, I wish there was a way to indicate sort of one-way traffic. For instance, we can go through this wall to the north, but we can't go through this wall to the south. I think that the sort of it makes me kind of want to do diode a little bit. I've seen like this symbol. Indicating that there's sort of a not a very good triangle. We're trying to make kind of the idea that there's a one-way wall here. And you can go through, but you can't one way, but you can't go through the other way. Now that we've got this turn on white, that's interesting. Can't do this way or this way. And this means we can't do this skate right here. So how are we supposed to get to this square? We must have come from down here. We mentioned already we can't go this way in a loop, so we've got to keep going this way. Nice. Now that we've got a bend on our white, we can't possibly enter that square again. So we must have done this. Okay. What's interesting about that, among other things, is that we've got to have 2 entries into this area on the left now. One to get into this, and one to get into this. And the only way to do that is to go across the ice twice. It's such a sharp puzzle designer. I'm really enjoying it. Well, we cannot do this one, and the reason why is that it creates a little loop. And to trace that loop, here we go. We're back to the start. Yeah, just a really, really smart puzzle design. We can tell that these two aren't connected because the flow is opposite. This one would have to exit to keep this following. Oops. Right. To get from here to here, you'd have to exit twice out of this square. Now we're once again in a scenario where we need 2 entries into this bottom right region. And there aren't that many entries left, right? Can't cross our path on white. And in fact, I think we've only got these 2 entries across ice that can get us there. Go. We turned on here. So this is actually a full barrier now. I don't have any way to change this triangle into a dot, so if I had an eraser, then I would do that now. Because that's a dot on an ice. We can't cross the ice there. We have a turn on white. We can't revisit there because that would be a branching. If we have any dead ends, then we can't use those either. It's causing us to skate across this way. Let's see. These guys can't be connected because the flow is wrong, right? This is already an entry, and so we can't enter from here to here. This would create a loop. Came down here. So we can't come down there, we've got to skate across. Got to turn. It's getting mildly complicated, but it's not too bad. This one is an exit, so we can't go from here to here because that would be another exit. The flows are opposite. We can't connect these two. The flows are opposite also. So this is exiting this way and this is exiting this way. That means we're doing this. Okay, so we know the end of our journey. It's taking this long route. This is the end. I mean, I think by inspection, right? Do a little bit of this. So with that inference right there, that we can't branch on white, we know that if we came down this way, we'd have this clash of traffic, right? This one is an entry, and if we came down this way, that would be an entry too. So we can't go that way. Forced to go this way. No choices in the corner. And finally, this is cut off by that. And that's our puzzle. What a superb design. So fun. Okay. While we were busy learning a new puzzle, the mayor has been working on our behalf. Let's see if we missed anything. So I think what's weird about this, and I think this would have happened at work as well too, and certainly a tendency of mine. Imagine that you are looking at a system and you are trying to work around a problem with it. Like, you know that there's this problem where we need to, it seems like routing to a certain GC agent would be enough. But in fact, we need to do this redundant thing to do assignee, right? And the reason that we're doing it this way is that instead of sort of fixing these conflicts or redundancies inside of the source system, is that we don't want to touch the source system. And I think that there's a certain tendency to believe that it's going to be harder to touch the source system than it is to just do our own thing and work around it. And I see this as kind of a symptom of that, right? Like instead of touching anything in Gas City, having to push a change upstream, It's sort of opinionated. It's very specific to what we're doing. It doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily of general interest, right? Um, and we don't want to make complicated decisions about whether this feature that we would use, like make everybody look at routed to instead of routed to an assignee or something like that. Um, and we don't want to think about whether that feature is good for the community at large. That expands the scope drastically. So instead, we're going to hack this locally a little bit. We're going to build on top of the scaffolding that is afforded to us by the system we're integrating with. And, if we have to do something a little hacky, fine. At least we didn't have to, shepherd a library change or, something like that. And now, this is documentation in the formula, I think. Um, so it's not actually controlling anything, but it's like the suggesting, the cognitive suggesting. Cool. All right, the bug fix landed. About 250 logic types. All right. So this is right. There's this sort of question, right? If you put work out into the universe, is it ever going to get done? If a tree falls in the forest, right? And I think that this question of what if you're just looking for something to do is not generally how these systems are intended to operate. It's more like if I'm staying in my lane and nobody tells me, hey, I invented this whole project and all the requirements are over here and we've just been waiting for you to work on it. And it's like, well, you didn't come through my intake. You didn't get on my schedule. You weren't prioritized against all the other projects. Why did you expect that that project would ever get done? And so this is sort of an interesting question. Like inside of Gas City, I've got this work. I poured it. I took a formula and I broke it into steps and I created real executable work on it, and it's just hanging out there. Um, let's talk a little about the residual work for Gas City. I understand. I understand that just creating work without assigning it to a certain pool or specialist might mean it's on no one's backlog and won't get worked. Um, if we wanted to fix that, does seem a little odd. That does seem a little odd. Maybe there are some clues. Let's go update our fork of Gas City one time. Whoops. Oh, interesting. Uh, where are we? I didn't really want to search. I wanted to, go to GitHub. Um, some of my other older projects you can see in here. I really wanted to simulate my wooden calendar. I should do this behind closed doors, so pardon me for a momento. I don't know why it's saying that this is recent in any way. I feel like I've had this for a long time. So yeah, we're just doing some two-factor authentication on GitHub. Mostly we're getting in here to sync our fork. All right. Secret time over. And certainly I recommend that if you, cool, interesting. Maybe there's new stuff here. If you keep a fork of something, that you should want to keep the main branch clean. You don't want to sort of diverge on your main branch and then not be able to kind of use it for comparative testing. When I'm doing a new feature, I'll do that in a branch. And I'd like to have my local copy sort of as up to date as possible, reflecting the changes in the parent, and then I'll be able to sort of compare their behavior in a kind of clean way. The reason I did that, about why it works this way, I just synced the local city code. We could ask GC Oracle. All right, so we did set up an agent the other day. We have like a local copy of the code for beads and a local copy of the code for Gas City. And we set up an agent to ask questions about that, to actually spelunk inside of the code and learn things, potentially create its own tools, make its own workflows, that kind of stuff. Maybe I should make a short screen uh, for technical difficulties. Okay. Isobon, my verdict, super puzzle, very cool. Um, this was just a scratch pad here, but this is sort of like our, we were prototyping a version of Slitherlink where you have to visit every cell, and trying some of the test puzzles that it was using for development. And hopefully we'll get a good pattern for um, the other to follow. Okay, and so this is the sample puzzle, but I think these are their puzzles that they've crafted. So yeah, no intention to step on that. Oh, did we get it right though? So we went right, down, right to the end, up, left, down, right, down, right to the end, up, left, down. Yeah, it certainly seems like we're well on our way. And I mean, I think all the inferences are logical. Fun puzzle. Really like it. More ice? Ice slalom. Isurom. Isurom. Let's see. Draw a single path from entry to exit, passing through every cell. Okay, that's new, different from Icebarn. Run horizontally or vertically between the centers of orthogonally adjacent. In white cells, you can turn but not cross. In a gray cell, you may not turn but may cross. And you must pass through the numbered cells in ascending order. So they're slalom gates. Okay, cool. This is fun. You see, if I wasn't renaming these, they'd all have the same name. Not making it super easy to save these images, Janko. Am I saying it wrong? Yanko? Is that how I'm really supposed to be? I think that is probably true. All right. So yeah, we can use our like skate and block as before. We can't go right here because that would take us straight to gate 3, and we haven't done the other ones yet. Yeah. Thought I was using pencil, but I guess hard pencils aren't what they used to be, probably. Okay, we've got to go through this. Here, let's. We got to go through this gate, and we don't know the directions on all the other gates, but we also got to go through 3. Oh, oops! I'm doing this in red. Sorry. Yeah. This is the only way to get through gates 1 and 3. And then out we go. Okay, so again, we're running into this kind of interesting thing about the order, the flow, the direction of the flow. We can't turn down again because that would take us through gate 3 again. There we are. We can put this in. It's helpful. And we can't go this way because that would take us to gate 2 immediately. So we turn, and then we can't go this way again because that's the path to gate 3 again. Because we couldn't get to gate 2 that way, and we have to go through it. This is the only way to gate 2. And now we can't go this way because we go to gate 2 early. We have to go this way. And again, we have to avoid gates 3 and 4 before their time. Gate 2 before its time. We can't make a little loop here for gate 3, so down we go. That makes this trip across the ice mandatory. What else do we know? We've got to do some stuff for gate 2 here. We're just trying not to make a loop in our path there. We can't go this way because that from in to 2. Oops. Man, if I could only draw a straight line with my mouse, that would be helpful. Interesting. Prior diagnosis blamed the same cheesy session origin gate, and the real cause was unescaped issue breaking template rendering. So the root cause story might be incomplete. Let's ask GC Oracle. interesting about ephemeral. I think that there is a distinction in Gas City, or at least there was in Gas Town, between polecats that we don't care about. They come, they do work, and then they sort of slink back into the darkness. And then crew were sort of intended to be longer lived agents that you could potentially go talk to. And I'm curious about whether that's written into the design or not. Okay, interesting. Okay, redundant manual spawn. Yeah, I definitely think that this is sort of like a thing that we're stumbling over as we're trying to use Gas City without knowing everything about it. It might be worthwhile at this point to actually return to the documentation and look into the architecture on formulas. I think that's it. Right. The auto convoy did spawn an ephemeral GC. Oracle is stalled in creating because the agent was in suspended state. And then when the agent resumed, it was unblocked. Um, let's see what it says. Let's see what it says. All right. Most of the way through our ice slalom, I think we've gotten a lot of good information here. Um, wrong side. I was thinking about this right here. This would take us to gate 4 first. And now, since we know we have to go through gate 4, can do some skating here. And it's got to be across the ice, which is also interesting. Okay, and so now we have 3 to 4, and all of this has sort of acquired a flow, right? Um, it's interesting how this one has a flow, and this one has a flow, but these two don't. One and the loops are on 1 and 2. And here we go. Now this one, because we had to avoid premature looping here, this one does have a flow too, because now it's going from 1 to 2. And so we can't go straight from in to 2. And you could also say they both have a forward flow. And so if we sent either one at each other, then that wouldn't work. We'd have 2 forward flows into the same cell. Cool. Here we go, 2, and we've got to avoid a loop. So it goes forward across the ice like so. And now we're pretty much done, I think. There's no other possibilities for this. So from 2, we flow forward. Could have drawn it either way. There we go. Fun puzzle again. I like these ice ones. They're cool. All right. It's actually looking for, there's like 100 or I forget how many things. There are so many different verbing kind of things. Hey, note there are a lot of verbs that the session might use while it's working. A lot of word of the day, gerunds, ing words. might use while thinking. I would just wait for it to mail you. Oh yeah, so if the ingestion is proceeding in the background, we'd expect that when I refresh this, interesting. Yeah, we've got a run going. That's great. Is there anything in staging? No. Have new entries. No. Good. Okay. Great. Isobon. We already saw Isobon and cool. So it's got lots of targets, I think. Like we suspected, you know. Hundreds of puzzle types. Good. It's, yeah, it looks like the survey's good. All right. We could look, so like if we want to see who's working in our city right now, we could take a look at the session. We do have an antiquarian session active. Is a playtester session active? I guess hasn't been active for a bit. The antiquarian. Um, okay, we're about to learn about this gas city question. And I'm not sure if it was polling. I mean, obviously, oops. Uh, um, I scrolled up and as I basically polluted all of the scroll back buffer in this tmux session. Okay. All right, let's read it. Let's read the message slowly. The Tier 3 origin gate fires for named sessions. For alias keyed sessions. It excludes anything else in the routed pool query. The gate itself is real. Pour without assignee is the deliberate pool contract. There are 3 delivery shapes in apply graph root binding. Direct session, named singleton, and pool. They're independent on purpose. Routed to is addressing, assignee is claim. The real named singleton dispatch path is sling, not pouring. Sling goes through apply graph routing, which sets assignee session name. GC formula cook. And the now external BD mall pour GC mall was removed. Skip graph root entirely. So it was poured under the pool contract, but consumed by a named singleton. Okay, yes. So in my mind, these things are kind of fungible, right? Like, as a user of Gas City, should I need to know this level of detail about whether the agent serving my work is in a pool or is a named singleton? Okay. Keep the dispatch pass as the named session adapter on top of the pool primitive. Gas City could fix this. Ad hoc molecules should either be slung when targeted at a named singleton specialist or manually assignee stamped. I would think slung is probably right. Um, before we file a follow-up or an issue in well, in Gas City, I'd like to understand if it's actually a bug or merely intended behavior. We went down this path, but it might be because we used the systems available in an unconventional way. Not totally surprising, since we are doing a department routing extension on top of Gas City. Um, I did it again. And I hesitate to sort of pull the mayor into this as well. But there are a bunch of open issues for Gas City. Oops. Right, okay, interesting. I hit Ctrl-Z. Control undo. I think there's a detach. um, yeah, there it is. Control BD. I don't want to mess up the session. I might have already because I hit Control-Z instead of Control underscore to undo. Yeah, we're basically trying to go. It's about GC molecule pour. And it's about apply graph routing, I think. I was trying to copy this text because I. Yeah. Interesting. This is from about a month ago. It seems like very similar to us. A legacy steps formula. Every step bead should carry routed to target. So the effective work query, I mean, this seems pretty similar to what we read. Stamp GC routed 2 on legacy steps formulas. So yeah, we might have hit a version of this. Might have to reset our mirror session because I've trapped us inside of a world where the session is backgrounded, but I don't think I have access to the TTY that will allow me to foreground it again. Right. Okay, so we've got the mayor. It's attached. Annoying. Okay. Force kill a session runtime. You could try this one. What we're hoping is that so we looked at session a little while ago, a long while ago, before we even started doing our puzzle factory. We started looking at the architecture of Gas City, and session is the first one we did. And the idea is that session is a wrapper around all of the interaction that you would do at the command line with like a coding agent. And so it's meant to abstract away. Am I talking to Claude or Gemini or GPT or whatever? And that means that when we do stupid stuff like this, um, maybe there are commands that a GC session wake is going to foreground it. Let's see here. Or something like that. I haven't seen this before. Keep a session awake. Pin. Cool. So it did manage to suspend it. Or, I ran a command line tool. I got this output. It strongly suggests that that is in fact what happened. Hmm. I guess we're going to have to kill the session, probably catch up. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that you'd see if you were like inside of a shell. Let's I guess we'll kill this one. Try that. Because yeah, you can see we're not going to be able to make a whole lot of progress without being able to talk to our mayor and give it stuff to do. Give it work to farm out. Although it's definitely possible that we're getting new. Well, we were going to ask it like, hey, who's working on this stuff? We're still not seeing any new entries in our catalog. We've got our survey, but I haven't seen evidence yet that it's going through those entries one by one. And it could be farming that out, I think, too. Okay. I guess I'd expect that the mayor wouldn't be in the session list anymore. It's asleep. We could try to wake it if this attachment doesn't work. Oh. I mean, I did have it over here. Gonna confuse myself about where my tabs are. But it's basically gas city, editor, and random. Oh. Uh I had a UI. I had a UI problem. Yeah. Oh, I see. This is showing me like some really old stuff, actually, like from days and days ago. Um, yeah. Yeah, still 300K. This is maybe an earlier session. Let's do a handoff. Try to start. Yeah, hopefully we didn't get rid of too much context. And there are ways to sort of recover it since we're keeping track of all of our conversations, that kind of stuff. I guess while I'm thinking about it, let's do one of these. Yeah, I try to just keep track of all my conversations should the worst happen, but also because I have some tools that allow me to reconstruct like what conversation caused what change. And so it's nice to just have them all permanently. This might have run in the night too. So it's not a totally big deal. Okay, it's still doing its thing. While it's doing its thing, we can do some more housekeeping here. Sure. We're using some CPU, but other than that, like nothing too scary on this VM. Hmm. I don't think that this is actually true. It's because we had to kill that other one because I made a boo-boo and hit Ctrl-Z in tmux that we ran into this difficulty. I wonder if there's an issue about that, incidentally. Huh. Not exactly. Lots of other times where suspension is like a thing. Oh, we don't have to look at only closed. Open might be fine. All right. Not related directly to doing stuff with Claude. Okay. Our backup's done. This is pretty much done. Okay. The controller is going to bounce the mayor. Hopefully it'll see the open work and the stuff that we've been talking about. Well, might be a good time to stop for lunch. So I'll try that. When we come back, maybe we'll figure out why our antiquarian isn't adding new entries to our catalog yet, and take it from there. All right, see y'all soon.